Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a different type of Remnant video for me. But sometimes I look around on Reddit and stuff, and there is a dev loop. This is the second one they've done, so I haven't really bothered to look at the first one. So we'll talk about this one. Just figured I'd share it for folks who have not actually seen it. Maybe you get some stuff to be excited for. So basically, the goal of the post is to keep everyone informed on some issues they've been working on. Not everything will be covered. Some special content remains a surprise. Yada yada yada. So yeah, they're touching on things that they're going to be updating here pretty soon. So some of it's pretty good. Armor, they talked about damage reduction. There are going to be a few areas they want to cover with like weight ratio to damage reduction or armor value, survivability versus stamina cost, ease of ignoring trade-offs, strengths of bright steel ring, surprise. So in the current build, there are some extreme ratio differences between the different armor pieces. Some grant upwards of 3 armor per weight, while others are barely exceeding a 1-to-1 ratio. Compare Labyrinth gloves to many other less efficient choices, which is, a lot of times when you start looking at like, this is the best thing to load out, you're always going to see, a few things. The Lido armor, Labyrinth gloves, bright steel ring. There's a lot of very key things that if you've kind of watched anything for, you know what they are. So next, because the heavier armors, especially Lido's Mark II, didn't have enough stamina cost penalty like they did in the first Remnant game, they became the obvious choice for most builds because you weren't really making any sort of sacrifice to wear them, which is true because you're really not. Like there's not, exactly what he said. Part of that was due to the weaker stamina cost penalties, and part of it was due to the strengths of the Bright Steel Ring. So that brings them into the Bright Steel Ring, possibly one of the strongest single items in the game. It simply grants too much power for a single ring slot in a game that has 4. It worked out in Remnant 1 because there's only 2 ring slots in Remnant 1. So in this one, there are 4 slots. So having to trade off only one of your 4 things is not a very big trade-off. So what are they going to do? So what's changing right here? So they're going to start off by creating an initial armor weight ratio that they felt was fair. The baseline 2-1 ratio for armor per weight was a good starting point and kept a lot of armors relatively close to where they were currently at, but not all. And then they adjusted the weights a bit and created a curve that granted lighter armors a more efficient ratio and heavier armors a less efficient ratio. For some insight, we did think about going the other way, but it just ended up making ultra heavy the clear choice, where, it is already very good. But as it stands right now, Bandit is the lightest of all our armor sets and has an overall ratio of about 2.52 armor per weight. So the way that's going to work out, Bandit armor doesn't weigh very much. So if it's only got a weight ratio, if it's only got 5 weight, that means you're only going to be getting about like 12 armor off of it. When then you go into the heavy ones, so, Mark 1 is the heaviest, an overall ratio of 1.9. So if it weighs, 15 units, you get that 1.9. So you're getting roughly like 28. So but you're also like double, tripling the weight. So that's kind of where it's going to work. Something like that anyways. And you can see it right there, right? The light armor would get you something like 21 to 22% damage reduction, and the Lido Mark 1 would be about 48%. But the heavier they get, the less efficient the ratio is, but most of the armors, especially in the middle of the weight range, gain similar damage reduction to what they did before. Not pinpoint exact, some even had their weights adjusted, but overall, the ratios should feel fair, which is nice. I think that's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good change. Some of them did lose some damage reduction as well, so they could fit within the ratio. Generally, it was no more than 3 or 4% max. So, I think that's fine. I think that's going to work it out. I don't think it's going to make any huge changes as far as, like, what is good and what's bad, but I think it's going to bring some of them more in line, and I definitely don't think it's going to make any of them useless. You know what I mean? Then we got the stamina cost penalties for each weight class. The UI, so the UI says 0% for light, 25% for medium, 50% for heavy, and then 75% for ultra heavy. It's actually 0, 15%, 30%, and a 45% stamina cost. So it's a pretty big difference, and so they're changing it so it actually matches the UI. And that means the heavier weight classes are going to spend more stamina when performing actions. So you're going to be penalized for wearing those heavier armors more, at least as far as stamina is concerned. You're still going to have the decent damage reduction, but the stamina costs are going to be a bit more pricey, which is going to bring up the value in some of your other things, right? Like the Bright Steel Ring. So they mentioned it. It's already super strong. Infinite encumbrance reduction ring. 1 ring slot allows you to wear maximum damage reduction armor and get the maximum roll and recovery, right? Which is just really strong. So they're changing it. It's now going to be the dull steel ring right there, and adjusted it so it reduces the weight class by 1. So you go from ultra heavy to heavy, heavy to medium, etc., etc. And I think they think it's a fair change. I think it sounds pretty fair too, because I mean, I think it was just too strong too. I don't know, probably gonna upset some people, but they'll get over it. Moving on, yeah, and then, in fact, if you wear the full Lido's Mark One, which is 95 weight, plus a Meteorite Shard, which is a ring that adds you like another like 55 or 50 encumbrance or something, or 45, something. You sit at a solid 145 total encumbrance, which is a lot. So wearing the Dullstone ring is still going to be an effective minus 70 encumbrance ring, which is still pretty sweet, right? It is still going to be adding a lot. It is solid. They're also going to change the strong back trait, which will be interesting. I'm kind of curious to see how I feel about that. I'm not really sure about that. Overall, no problems with them being super tanky. We just want to make sure there are trade-offs, which I am totally for. I think most of the things should be, all about trade-offs, right? You want to do this, well, it's going to cost a little bit of this, etc. Next area of focus, survivability trinkets. So they've done a pass on about 35 survivability amulets and rings, which is a lot. And they're doing that so that they coincide with some of their armor changes. And they want to make some of them more enticing than before, because some of them, like, they're okay, but you just kind of ignore them because it's meh. But yeah, some that had damage reduction, healing, lifesteal, max health, max stamina, or even shield have been buffed in some way. Could be value, duration, proc trigger, stacks, blah, blah, blah. So all kinds of things. Here's a couple examples. They listed Lido's Amulet, increased stamina cost reduction, which is going to be great, especially when you consider that they are basically upping some of the stamina cost for wearing heavier armor. So having that reduced stamina cost reduction and some of that weight reduction as well is going to be really big. Samophalange, I've never used because I feel like the trade-off on that one is really heavy, but maybe I'll try it out. So increased damage reduction from 50 to 60%. Bisected Ring reduces incoming damage penalty from 25% to 15%. That's really nice. I think that's going to be pretty awesome. Blood Tinged Ring increases the range from 10 to 25 meters. Blood Tinged Ring gives you 2 health per second for each entity suffering from bleeding within range. I like this change a lot because I thought the ring was really fun to use, but the range was so small, you pretty much had to use it on a melee build or just play it really close. Like, it was kind of hard to use it effectively, I felt. So this range increase should be pretty nice. Fey Bruiser Ring, which is one I've actually been using a lot here lately and is a build thing I'm messing with right now. Duration is being increased from 7 seconds to 15 seconds. I think that's going to be great too, because the way it was before, it really required you to constantly hit, because those 7 seconds ended really fast. 15 seconds is going to really allow it to last for a while. Like, you just hit them and then you move on. Ring of Deflection, increased deflection chance from 20% to 35%. Ring of Deflection made it so that when you take damage, there's a chance that all of the damage got converted into gray health instead of just a percentage of it. So I think that's going to be kind of nice. It'll make it really, really nice for having, a lot of gray health regeneration. Be a nice build there. Tomb Dweller Ring, increase max stack count from 1 to 3. I actually have completely forgotten what that one does. I just remember looking at it before and not being impressed, so I never used it. So maybe now I'll actually look at it. Strong back trait, coinciding with armor updates, reworking strong back. So, right, you get 10 points into strong back, it reduces your encumbrance by 10. But now the dodge weight threshold is increased by 15. So without strong back, a medium dodge is 26 to 50. And with strong back, it's now 41 to 65. So, okay, I understand what I'm saying. When I first read this thing, it didn't make sense to me. So what it does right now is you have 60 encumbrance and you have 10 points in a strong back, your encumbrance load is now 50, right? So it literally makes your weight load smaller, which is nice because it does what it's supposed to do, which is make you be able to wear heavier armor and still get a good dodge. However, what it doesn't help with, and it was something I noticed when I'm on my first playthrough, was using an amulet like the Weightless Weight. So, right, and they say it right here, Weightless Weight and the Haymaker's Ring. So Weightless Weight makes it so that for each point of encumbrance that you have, you are faster and your things cost less. But the strong back perk literally works against it, even though when I'm playing the Challenger, I really feel like that amulet is built for that. And I'm actually using it right now on a build that I'm messing with. So the change on a strong back, instead of actually reducing your stamina or your encumbrance, it's going to change your dodge weight threshold. So now if your medium weight threshold is a 50, now it's a 65. So it doesn't reduce your encumbrance load, so you can still get the benefits of the weightless ring or the weightless weight in the Haymaker's ring, but you can still get those medium rolls. So that's a perfect change. Perfect change. Yeah, and what's this change? Leaders Mark II, which has a total of 90 encumbrance, will be able to heavy roll with a new strong back because the heavy threshold will be increased from 51 to 75 or will be increased from 51 to 75 to 66 to 90. And then dull steel wheel, you got a medium roll in Mark II, which is really cool. I like that. I like that a lot. And they do say they will probably bring back a pure encumbrance trait reduction trait in the future, but it will be choice instead of mandatory for the challenger. So I think that's perfect change. And it's really unfortunate. I want this to roll out fast because literally the build I'm doing right now is using the weightless weight, Lido Mark II, and some other things. And I would like for that to come out now instead of me making a video for some build and then all of the gear get like tweaked around. Some miscellaneous fixes. Some bugs and things for archetypes and stuff are going to be adjusted. Misty Step should be working properly now. Shield Breaker, this is a big one. It's going to be changed to Shielding Strike. So now with the max upgrade, instead of consuming all the shields, it's going to give you a damage boost based on the amount of shield present and will not consume the shield, which is awesome. I think it's going to be amazing for some of my... I had specifically a melee shield build, and while consuming the shield kind of like grew on me, it was still very frustrating to lose all the shield I worked on. So I like that change a lot. Favorance Sigil no longer allows mod generation for active mods, but will generate for inactive mods. I think that's just going to be a good change. Resonating Heart's overhealing amount no longer gains a double benefit from healing effectiveness. Yeah, that sounds like that's probably a good change, because that seems like it would be really strong. Certain mutators that function with certain melee weapons now trigger properly. That's good. I was using the what's called Misfortune mutator, which applies slow to your charged melee attacks at level 10. And when I was using it on the Assassin's Blade, it did not apply slow for some reason. So hopefully that's one of them that'll be fixed. They are adding loadouts, and in one of the comments down below that they mentioned that they will be adding more than 5 loadouts, which is going to be awesome. Some other balance stuff. Dust Settles, going to do a pass on all weapon mod archetypes and even traits. A lot of moving parts, so they had to wait until they had the armor where they wanted and cleaned up as many bugs as possible before trying to like really mess with all the other things. A ton of ideas, especially for traits. Tons of surprises in the store. Stay tuned. Yeah, I mean, when they mentioned in some of the comments again, somebody asked about the Star Killer and its big, like, as a black hole mod thing that pulls people in and then it explodes. And they were asking, like, is that going to get buffed? Please buff it, because I would like that buff too. I really like that gun. And they're like, yeah, that one's going to be buffed. And a bunch of other ones. So that's pretty cool. Keep in mind that these are not the only things they're looking at. They're always on the lookout for more issues, bugs, taking care of things, yada, yada, yada. They have stuff on Reddit, Twitter, forums, YouTube, and of course their Discord. You can check out their Discord there. Quick updates on their Twitter for more official and usually formatted. Please go to their Twitter page, I guess. Things like that. So yeah, that's what's going on. Hopefully that comes out sooner than later, because I would like to use some of these changes on actual builds that I'm trying to make videos for right now. That's it. Cool. See you guys later.